This kangaroo refused to let go of a backpack. What was inside made everyone cry. The first person who noticed the kangaroo was holding a backpack was not a ranger, not a rescuer, and not one of the tourists who had stopped at the lookout to take photos of the red cliffs glowing in the morning sun. It was 12-year-old Mia Lawson sitting in the back seat of her father's dusty white ute, staring out the window because her phone had no signal and she had already complained about it 3 times. They were driving through the edge of Waranook Conservation Reserve in South Australia, where the dry bushland stretched in every direction like a sea of silver-green scrub, red dirt, and twisted eucalyptus trees. The summer heat had arrived early that year. Even before 10 in the morning, the air shimmered above the road, and cicadas screamed from the trees so loudly it felt as if the whole landscape was buzzing. Mia had been bored, annoyed, and secretly a little sad. Her father, Daniel Lawson, had brought her to the reserve for the weekend because he said they needed time away from screens. Mia knew what that really meant. It meant he wanted to talk. Since her mother had died the year before, Daniel was always trying to create moments where talking might happen naturally. Walks, drives, camping trips, cooking dinner together. He meant well, but grief did not become easier just because someone packed sandwiches and pointed at scenery. So Mia sat with her forehead against the window, pretending not to care about anything. Then she saw the kangaroo. "Dad," she said. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "What?" "There's a roo over there." "There are lots of roos out here, sweetheart." "No," Mia said, sitting up straighter. "That one has a backpack." Daniel frowned and slowed the ute. At first, he thought she had mistaken a shadow or a piece of torn fabric caught in the scrub, but then he saw it too. About 30 meters off the road, near a low stand of mallee trees, stood a large female kangaroo. She was gray-brown, lean from the harsh season, with powerful hind legs, tall ears, and dark eyes fixed on the vehicle. And clutched tightly between her front paws was a small blue backpack. Daniel pulled onto the gravel shoulder. Mia unbuckled her seatbelt immediately. "No," Daniel said. "But Dad—" "No, stay in the car." The kangaroo did not run. That alone was strange. Wild kangaroos usually bounded away when cars stopped too close. This one stood still, the backpack pressed to her chest, breathing hard. Her ears flicked forward and back. Dust clung to her fur. One side of her body looked scraped, as if she had pushed through sharp brush. Daniel reached for his phone, then remembered there was no service. Mia pressed her face to the glass. "Why does she have that?" "I don't know." "Is it a kid's backpack?" Daniel did not answer. The backpack was bright blue with a cartoon dinosaur keychain hanging from one zipper. It looked small, too small for an adult. A cold feeling moved through him. He opened the ute door slowly and stepped out, keeping his body sideways and non-threatening. He had grown up in rural Australia and knew enough not to approach a kangaroo carelessly. A panicked kangaroo could injure a person badly with one kick. A mother with a joey could be especially defensive. This one looked anxious, not aggressive, but that didn't make her safe. "Easy," Daniel said softly. The kangaroo stared at him. Her paws tightened around the backpack. Mia cracked her window. "Dad, be careful." "I am." He took one slow step forward. The kangaroo stepped back. Daniel stopped. The kangaroo looked toward the scrub behind her, then back at him. Mia saw it too. "She wants you to look over there," she called. Daniel glanced toward the trees. "Mia, stay in the car." The kangaroo shifted, still gripping the backpack. Then she did something that made Daniel's mouth go dry. She hopped 2 awkward steps toward the scrub, stopped, and looked back. The backpack swung from her paws. Then she made a low, rough sound. Not a cry exactly, more like a warning or a plea. Daniel backed toward the ute and grabbed his emergency radio from the glove compartment. It was old, rarely used, and mostly there because he was the sort of man who prepared for things that never happened. He switched channels and tried to raise the reserve station, static. He moved around the vehicle, lifted the antenna, tried again. Warnock Ranger Station, this is Daniel Lawson on the East Access Road, approximately 6 kilometers north of Red Bank Lookout. We have unusual wildlife behavior and possible lost property. A kangaroo is holding a child's backpack and appears to be leading toward the scrub. Do you copy? Static cracked. Then a voice came through faintly. Repeat that, please? Daniel closed his eyes for half a second. Of course it sounded ridiculous. He repeated it. This time the voice sharpened. Stay with your vehicle. Do not approach the animal. Rangers are en route. Is anyone visibly injured? Not that I can see. The kangaroo has scrapes. No humans visible. Copy. Remain at location. Daniel lowered the radio. Mia was staring at him. What if someone's lost? She asked. Daniel looked at the blue backpack in the kangaroo's paws. The dinosaur keychain moved gently in the hot wind. I think someone might be. The kangaroo waited another minute, then turned and moved farther into the scrub. Dad! Mia shouted. Daniel swore softly, then grabbed a red bandana from the dashboard and tied it to a roadside post to mark their location. He took his first aid kit, 2 bottles of water, and the radio. Mia opened her door. No, he said immediately. I'm coming. No, you are not. What if it's a kid? That is exactly why you are staying in the ute. But you always say never leave someone alone if something's wrong. Daniel froze. Mia's eyes were wet now, but fierce. Mom said that too. The words hit him harder than he expected. His wife Emily had been a paramedic. She had been brave in practical, ordinary ways that made people feel safe. She had stopped for car accidents, helped strangers in supermarkets, checked on neighbors during storms. Mia remembered that. Of course she did. Daniel swallowed. You stay within sight of me, he said finally. You do exactly what I say. If I tell you to go back, you go back. Mia nodded quickly. They followed the kangaroo into the scrub. The heat rose around them immediately, thick and dry. Twigs snapped beneath their shoes, flies circled their faces. The scent of eucalyptus hung sharp in the air. The kangaroo moved ahead in short bursts, never letting them come too close, but never vanishing either. Every so often she stopped beneath a tree, turned, and waited, still holding the backpack. That's not normal, Mia whispered. No, Daniel said. It isn't. After several minutes, they reached a shallow, dry creek bed. The kangaroo crossed it easily, then stopped on the far side and looked back. Daniel helped Mia down the bank, noticing footprints in the sand as he did. Small shoe prints, a child. Beside them were drag marks, scuffed dirt, and the deep print of kangaroo feet. Daniel crouched. Mia stood beside him, suddenly very quiet. Dad? These are fresh. The kangaroo made the low sound again. From somewhere ahead, faint and thin, came a cry. Human. Mia gasped. Daniel stood so quickly his head spun. Hello? He shouted. Can you hear me? The cry came again, weak, farther into the scrub. The kangaroo immediately turned toward the sound and hopped forward. Daniel followed faster now, heart pounding. Mia kept close behind him, one hand gripping the back of his shirt. The scrub thickened, scratching at their arms and legs. The ground sloped downward toward a cluster of rocks near a dry water hole, one of the many natural depressions that filled during rain and became traps when mud hardened and branches collapsed around them. The kangaroo stopped at the edge of the rocks. She dropped the backpack. Then she looked down. Daniel reached her side carefully, keeping distance from her legs, and looked over the edge. A little boy was trapped below. He was wedged in a narrow rocky hollow about 3 meters down, partly shaded by fallen branches. He could not have been more than 5 or 6. His face was red from heat and streaked with tears and dirt. One leg was caught beneath a heavy branch, and his small hands clutched at the dry earth. He wore one shoe. The other lay nearby. His voice cracked when he saw them. Help! Mia started crying instantly. Dad! Daniel dropped to his stomach near the edge. Hey, buddy. My name is Daniel. We're going to help you. What's your name?" The boy blinked up at him, dazed. "Oliver. Oliver, are you hurt?" "My leg," he sobbed, "and I'm thirsty." Daniel looked around quickly. The slope into the hollow was unstable, loose rock and dry dirt ready to slide. The fallen branch pinning the boy's leg was tangled with other debris. If Daniel climbed down too fast, he could send more rocks onto him. If he moved the branch wrong, he could worsen the injury. Mia knelt beside him. "Is he going to be okay?" "He's alive," Daniel said. "That's what matters right now." The kangaroo stood a few feet away, breathing hard, watching the boy. Only then did Daniel notice the shape moving in her pouch, a joey, small, gray, and wide-eyed, peering out from the safety of its mother's body. The kangaroo was a mother. Daniel looked from the joey to the trapped child, then to the backpack at her feet. "What happened here?" he whispered. The answer would come later, pieced together from tracks, the boy's frightened memories, and what rescuers found in the scrub. Oliver Hart had been camping with his parents at a nearby caravan site. Early that morning, while his father packed the tent and his mother took a phone call near the car, Oliver had wandered after a blue butterfly. He had been wearing his backpack because it held his toy dinosaur, a juice box, and the little notebook where he drew animals. By the time his parents realized he was gone, he had moved beyond the picnic area and into the scrub. He must have become frightened and tried to climb over the rocks near the dry water hole. The branch shifted, he fell, and his leg became pinned. His backpack came off during the fall. The kangaroo had found him, or he had cried until she came close. Maybe she had been resting nearby with her joey. Maybe the sound of a small distressed creature drew her attention. Maybe as a mother she recognized fear and helplessness in a language older than words. Whatever the reason, she stayed. Tracks later showed she had circled the hollow many times. She had scratched at the branch. She had moved between the boy and the open scrub where dingoes had been seen in recent weeks. At some point she picked up the backpack and carried it toward the road, not to steal it, not to play, to bring something human back to humans. Daniel reached for the radio with shaking hands. "Warrenook Ranger Station, this is Lawson. We found a child." "Repeat. We found a child trapped in a rocky hollow east of the access road near a dry creek bed. He is alive but injured and dehydrated. Need rescue and medical immediately." The reply came through almost at once. "Copy, Lawson. Rangers are close. Emergency services notified. Keep the child calm. Do not attempt extraction if unstable." Daniel looked down at Oliver. The boy was crying quietly now, his eyes fixed on the kangaroo. "Backpack," Oliver whispered. Mia crawled carefully to the backpack and picked it up. "Is this yours?" Oliver nodded weakly. The kangaroo's ears twitched. Mia opened the bag and found a dented juice box, a plastic dinosaur, and a folded drawing. She looked at her father. "Can I give him the juice?" Daniel hesitated. "Small sips only." He tied a water bottle to a strap from his pack and lowered it first, carefully. Oliver drank greedily until Daniel told him to slow down. Then Mia lowered the juice box. Oliver held it with trembling hands. "My dinosaur?" he asked. Mia looked inside the backpack and pulled out a small green toy. "This one." Oliver nodded. She lowered it to him. The boy clutched it to his chest and began crying again. The kangaroo made a soft clicking sound. Mia turned toward her. "Dad," she whispered. She brought his backpack because she knew it was his. Daniel could not answer. Rangers arrived 15 minutes later, though it felt much longer. The first was Grace Whitlam, a senior reserve ranger with sun-darkened skin, short silver hair, and eyes that took in everything at once. Behind her came a younger ranger named Cade and 2 emergency responders carrying ropes, a collapsible stretcher, and medical equipment. Grace stopped when she saw the kangaroo. "She's still here?" Daniel nodded. "She led us to him." Grace looked at him, then at the backpack, then at the trapped boy. Her face softened, but only for a second. "All right, we work carefully. Nobody gets between the Roo and her Joey. Nobody crowds her. Cade, keep watch for dingoes. Paramedics, assess from above first. The kangaroo stepped back when the rescuers approached, but she did not flee. Her Joey ducked deeper into the pouch. She stood beneath the shade of a small gum tree and watched every movement. Mia stayed beside Daniel, holding the backpack now like it was something sacred. The rescue was slow. A paramedic named Aaron descended first with a rope harness, testing each foothold before putting weight on it. He reached Oliver and checked his pulse, temperature, and leg. The boy was dehydrated and overheated, with bruising and possible fracture, but he was alert. The branch pinning him had to be lifted with stabilizing support so it would not roll. "Oliver," Aaron said calmly, "you're doing really well. We're going to move this branch, then we'll bring you up." Oliver looked past him toward the kangaroo. "Don't scare her," he whispered. Aaron glanced up at the animal watching from the shade. "I won't." Grace heard and looked at Daniel. "He knows she stayed?" Daniel nodded. "I think so." The branch shifted once during the lift and Oliver screamed. The kangaroo lunged forward. Everyone froze. Grace raised both hands, speaking low. "Easy, girl. Easy." The kangaroo stood tall on her hind legs. Powerful tail braced against the ground, ears forward, body tense. For a terrifying moment, Daniel thought she might attack. Not because she was vicious, because she had protected the child for too long to understand why humans were making him cry. Oliver sobbed, "It's okay." The kangaroo held still. Mia whispered, "She's worried about him." Daniel put an arm around his daughter. "Yes," he said, "I think she is." The rescuers reset the branch and lifted again, slower this time. Oliver's leg came free. Aaron wrapped it carefully, checked circulation, and secured him in the small rescue stretcher. When they lifted him from the hollow, the boy reached toward the kangaroo. "Backpack," he said weakly. Mia stepped forward, but Grace stopped her. Slowly. Mia walked to Oliver's stretcher and placed the backpack beside him. Oliver hugged it with one arm. Then he looked toward the kangaroo. "Thank you," he whispered. The kangaroo stared at him. Her Joey peeked out again. For a moment, nobody spoke. Even the cicadas seemed quieter. Then the kangaroo lowered her head slightly as if sniffing the air, turned and hopped a few steps toward the scrub. She stopped once, looked back at the group, then moved away with her Joey safe in her pouch. Mia wiped her cheeks. "She saved him," she said. Grace watched the kangaroo disappear between the trees. "She certainly found you," she said, "and that may have made all the difference." Oliver's parents arrived at the rescue site just as he was being carried back toward the road. His mother, Sarah Hart, ran so hard she stumbled in the dirt. His father, Liam, followed with a face as white as paper. When Sarah saw Oliver on the stretcher, she made a sound Daniel would never forget. It was not quite a sob and not quite a scream. It was the sound of a parent who had been standing at the edge of losing everything and suddenly saw their child alive. Oliver lifted one small hand. "Mom?" Sarah fell to her knees beside the stretcher, touching his face, his hair, his hands, as if she had to prove he was real. "I'm here," she cried. I'm here, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Liam stood behind her, shaking, one hand pressed over his mouth. Oliver, exhausted and still half-dazed, whispered, "The kangaroo brought my bag." Sarah looked at Daniel. Daniel nodded toward Mia, who still held the blue backpack until the paramedic placed it beside Oliver again. "She carried it to the road," Mia said softly. "She wouldn't let go." Sarah began crying harder. At the hospital in Port Augusta, doctors confirmed Oliver had a fractured lower leg, dehydration, heat exhaustion, and bruises, but no life-threatening injuries. They said another few hours in the hollow could have been disastrous, especially with the rising heat. By afternoon, news of the rescue had spread from the reserve to the town and then across the region. A kangaroo had carried a missing child's backpack. A kangaroo had led people to him. A kangaroo had stayed near him with her own Joey in her pouch. People called it unbelievable. Daniel thought that was the right word, not impossible, just unbelievable. Grace and the Rangers reviewed the area the next day. The tracks told the story more clearly than any witness could. Oliver's small footprints wandered from the picnic area into the scrub. His shoe marks disappeared near the rocks. The kangaroo's tracks circled the hollow again and again. Dingo prints were found farther away, not close enough to prove an immediate attack, but close enough to show danger had been nearby. The kangaroo's tracks then led toward the road, stopping several times where she had likely rested or adjusted the backpack. Grace later told Daniel, "She probably didn't understand the backpack as a human object the way we do, but she may have associated it with the child. She may have carried it while moving between him and the road, or she may have been curious and we got lucky." Daniel listened respectfully. Then Grace added quietly, "But I've worked in this reserve for 28 years, and I've never seen anything like it." Mia could not stop thinking about the kangaroo. She asked Grace what would happen to her. "Nothing, if she's healthy," Grace said. "She belongs here." "What about the scrapes?" "We'll monitor from a distance. She has a joey, so we won't intervene unless absolutely necessary." "Can we name her?" Grace gave her a look. Mia sighed. "You're going to say wild animals don't need names." "Correct." Mia looked toward the scrub. "I'm calling her Ruby anyway." Grace smiled despite herself. "I had a feeling." That night, back at the small cabin Daniel had rented near the reserve, Mia sat on the porch steps with her knees pulled to her chest. The sky was wide and full of stars. Insects hummed in the dry grass. Far away, something moved through the scrub. Daniel sat beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Mia said, "Mom would have gone after him faster than you." Daniel let out a surprised laugh that became something sadder. "Yes," he said. "She probably would have. She would have known what to do. She often did." Mia pressed her chin to her knees. "I miss her." Daniel's throat tightened. "I know." "No, Dad, I really miss her." He turned toward her. "I do too." Mia's eyes filled. "Sometimes I feel bad when I'm not thinking about her. Like if I laugh or have fun, it means I'm forgetting." Daniel closed his eyes. He had wanted her to talk for months. Now that she was talking, he felt completely unprepared for the weight of it. "You're not forgetting," he said carefully. "You're living. Your mom wanted that for you." Mia wiped her face. "How do you know?" "Because she wanted it for everyone. That was who she was." Mia looked out toward the dark bushland. "The kangaroo had her own baby," she said, "but she still helped Oliver." Daniel nodded slowly. "She didn't have to." "No. Maybe moms just hear kids differently." Daniel put his arm around her. "Maybe they do." Mia leaned into him for the first time in months. The story of Ruby, as Mia insisted on calling the kangaroo, became part of Warrenook's history. Grace refused to sensationalize it, but the reserve used the attention to teach visitors about staying on marked paths, supervising children, carrying emergency beacons, and respecting wildlife. The Hearts, shaken by how quickly a family outing had nearly turned into tragedy, donated funds for better trail signage and child safety markers near the picnic areas. Sarah Hart wrote a letter to the Rangers and to Daniel and Mia. Mia kept her copy folded inside a notebook. In it, Sarah wrote, "Oliver sleeps with the dinosaur from his backpack every night. He says the kangaroo watched over him until people came. I don't know how to explain what happened. I only know that my son is alive because a wild mother saw a lost child and did not turn away." Mia read that line again and again. A wild mother saw a lost child and did not turn away. Weeks passed. Oliver recovered. His cast was covered in drawings of dinosaurs, kangaroos, and one very dramatic picture of Ruby wearing a superhero cape, which Grace said was biologically inaccurate but emotionally understandable. Daniel and Mia returned home to Adelaide, but something between them had shifted. They talked more, not always about Emily, sometimes about school, work, bad movies, burnt toast, and whether Daniel should ever try cooking curry again. But grief had become less like a locked room and more like a place they could enter together. Mia began volunteering at a local wildlife rescue center once a month. At first, she cleaned feeding bowls and folded towels. Later, she helped prepare formula for orphan joeys under supervision. She learned that rescue was not cuddling animals for photos. It was laundry, patience, quiet voices, proper permits, and letting wild things remain wild. She liked that. 6 months after the rescue, Grace called Daniel. "I thought Mia might want to know," she said. "Ruby's been seen near Red Bank again." Daniel smiled. "Ruby?" Grace cleared her throat. "The unnamed female kangaroo with the joey." "Of course. The joey is out of pouch now, healthy. Both look good." Daniel told Mia after school. She cried, then immediately denied crying. A year later, the Harts invited Daniel and Mia to Oliver's 6th birthday picnic at a park in town. Oliver still limped slightly when tired, but he ran anyway, chasing bubbles with a group of children. When he saw Mia, he ran straight to her and hugged her around the waist. "You're the girl with my backpack," he said. Mia smiled. "And you're the boy with the dinosaur." He held up the same green toy, now scratched and worn. "His name is Rex." "Good name." Oliver's mother, Sarah, hugged Daniel with tears in her eyes. "I don't know if I'll ever stop saying thank you," she said. Daniel looked toward Mia, who was laughing as Oliver showed her his birthday cake covered in tiny kangaroos. "You don't have to," he said. "We were just the ones who followed." Sarah shook her head. "That matters." Later that afternoon, Oliver opened a gift from Mia. It was a small picture book she had made herself, stapled together with a blue cover. The drawings were simple but careful. A little boy with a backpack, a kangaroo in the scrub, a father and daughter following, a rescue, and finally a kangaroo hopping away with a joey. The last page showed the kangaroo beneath a sky full of stars. Underneath, Mia had written, "Some heroes don't stay for thank you, they just make sure you get home." Sarah cried when she read it. So did Daniel. Mia pretended not to notice and gave Oliver a packet of dinosaur stickers. Years later, Mia would remember that day in Waranook as the moment her life changed direction. She studied wildlife conservation. She trained in rescue response. She wrote her university entrance essay about a kangaroo who refused to let go of a backpack. She was careful with the story, always explaining that wild animals should not be approached, that Ruby's behavior could not be neatly translated into human motives, that trained rangers and paramedics had saved Oliver's life, but then she would say what she believed in her bones. Ruby knew something was wrong. She knew the backpack belonged to the little boy. She knew where people were, and she kept that bag close until someone understood. Some people called that instinct, some called it coincidence, some called it a miracle. Mia did not mind. Love and instinct had always been more tangled than people wanted to admit. One summer evening, nearly 8 years after the rescue, Mia returned to Waranook as a university intern. Grace, older now but still sharp-eyed, drove her along the East Access Road. The red dirt glowed under sunset. The scrub smelled of dust and eucalyptus. The place looked exactly the same and completely different. They stopped near the spot where Daniel had first tied the red bandana to the roadside post. Mia stepped out. For a moment, she was 12 again, frightened and sweating in the heat, watching a wild kangaroo hold a child's backpack like a message from the bush. Grace stood beside her. "She was seen last season," the ranger said quietly. Mia turned. "Ruby?" "The unnamed kangaroo," Grace corrected automatically. Then she smiled. Older, still with a small group near the dry creek. No joey now, but alive. Mia looked toward the scrub. As if summoned by memory, a kangaroo appeared between the trees. She was far away, too far to be certain. Gray-brown, lean, tall-eared, standing in the low light. She looked toward the road for a few seconds. Mia did not move. The kangaroo lowered her head and bounded away into the brush. Grace did not say it was Ruby. Mia did not ask. Some things were better left wild. That night, Mia wrote in her field journal, "Today I stood where she found us. I used to think rescue meant humans saving animals. Now I know it can be more complicated. Sometimes animals notice what we miss. Sometimes they lead us back to what matters. Sometimes they carry the evidence of a life in danger and refuse to let go. And sometimes the thing inside a backpack is not just a toy, a juice box, or a child's drawing. Sometimes it is a whole story waiting to be understood. Because inside Oliver's backpack were the things that proved who he was: his dinosaur, his notebook, his snacks, his little world. Ruby carried that world out of the scrub and placed it where humans could see it. What was inside made everyone cry because it revealed the truth. A child had been there, a child was still alive, and a wild mother had been trying to tell them. So before we go, remember this. Not every rescue begins with a shout. Sometimes it begins with a kangaroo standing beside a road, clutching a blue backpack in her paws, refusing to drop it because somewhere in the scrub a little boy is waiting. Sometimes the wild does not turn away from us. Sometimes it calls us closer, not for itself, but for someone hidden beyond our sight. Ruby was never tame. She never belonged to the people who followed her. She returned to the bush, to her Joey, to the life that was hers. But for one unforgettable morning, she carried a child's backpack like a message. And because one family finally understood, a lost little boy made it home.